welcome to this edition of AI Insight. And today I have with me a very dear friend and an absolute expert in the space, in the data and AI space, Kiran Mysore, who is the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at Sutter Health. And prior to that, he's gone and done a lot of other interesting things. We'll ask him about it. But Kiran, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Amaresh.
Wonderful. So, Kiran, do you want to quickly introduce yourself or not? But a little bit about your background and kind of what this thing, and then maybe go into like Sutter and your role there.
Absolutely. Firstly, Amaresh, thanks for having me. I know we've done a few of these together, and I really appreciate the time with you and look forward to this conversation. So my background has historically been in the space of data and AI. I grew up in the space of data AI for many, many years, more than a couple of 2.5 decades. Most recently, I ventured into the healthcare industry because healthcare to me is where the power of AI really comes to life and actually meaningfully moving and making change in a person's well-being. I'm inspired by that vision and that opportunity, and so that's what I do at Sutter Health. I'm the Chief Data AI, Chief Data Analytics Officer, and my focus is really to make it easy for everyone to get their data and insights in the best way possible.
Got it. And how is the data analytics group organized in Sutter?
So it is evolving, let me say it that way. So when I took on the organization, we were a very technology and a process-centric organization. We were basically looking for opportunities, where the business would engage with us, and then we would deliver the solutions that they asked for. So a little bit of a reactive way of thinking. But what we also found is that we were serving a lot of people in the business who had their own analytics teams who were building on top of the solutions we were providing. And so we sort of floated this opportunity to say, well, what if we sort of brought some of the big analytics teams together under one umbrella? Then we could not only understand the business really well, but then we could also build the solutions in the right way and really make it more efficient in terms of delivery. So that's what we did. We brought in a lot of the business analytics functions into one umbrella under my organization. And then we reorganized to support all of the business functions through a central organization with a product mindset so that we could build data products, analytic products. And then the engineering side of my organization essentially understands the priorities very well. And then they start to go build those things right off the bat. So we have a business focus and a technology focus. More recently, we have realized the importance of governance. We've always had the place for governance all along, but in terms of formalizing it and getting a little bit more structure around it, we're starting to put that in place. And obviously, AI is all around us. So we hired a leader to drive a lot of the AI initiatives. And we're getting ready for a 2025 AI strategy and implementation as well. So there is a focus on that piece as well. And to sort of glue it all together, I also have a chief of staff who really runs my value management office. So, what projects do we work on? Which ones have the most value? How do we manage and streamline our operations through, good intake, good prioritization, making sure we have talent development and career goals for all our team members. So there's a leader on my team who does all of that. So
wonderful.
we've sort of covered a lot of different functions together.
You've covered a lot of things. So let's unpack that a little bit. So starting with, it seems like going from a federated or a decentralized model to a centralized model. Normally, I mean, it sounds great on paper, but you normally have a lot of the business units complaining about not getting the proper amount of service and kind of focus and everything. How have you kind of taken care of that?
It is also a work in progress. I won't say we have solved and cracked the nut on that. When I took on the role, the first few days, my journey was to really interview a lot of our business leaders and understand some of the key challenges they were facing. One of the common themes that I heard was that, analytics teams don't move at the speed of the business. They take a long time and, they take a very waterfallish approach. Tell me the requirements, I'll go build something for you. And that takes a very long time for the business users, and then they lose interest and they go build it on their own. At the same time, when I asked my team, the technology team, about it at the time, they said, look, we have never really invested the right amount of money in technology. If we had the best tools, if we had the right processes, we can actually be fast and deliver the thing, the capabilities you need. but we need time. So I came up with this concept of a two-speed approach, which is not new to Sutter. I mean, it's actually very common in the industry. Speed one is, speed of the business. So our analytics teams need to move at that speed. Speed two is the speed of foundation building, which is a technology and the platform and the processes and the talent that we need to be successful. And that takes time. And so the trick is to blend the two, where you're able to move at the speed of the business by identifying the most important business cases and then applying the existing technology to that with a promise to remediate that with a long-term strategy and approach and committing to that in the roadmap. So that blending is really important, and that's what we did. And that's how we got a lot of the business stakeholders on board. A good example is one of our top stakeholders is our chief operations officer,
Hmm.
who basically I partnered with to build and deliver a very strategic operational analytics solution that is being rolled out across the organization today. And that was a big success, partly because we were able to move at the speed that he wanted us to move, but at the same time, lay the right capabilities that we didn't have in that foundation and then start to enable those over a period of time. So
That's fascinating. I mean, so just I'm just curious. I mean, this speed one, speed two is a great concept. I mean, I've heard of it, and it seems like the blending. It's very hard to execute. But more specifically, so some of the foundational technology investments that you're doing, and you're essentially, are you justifying it with in the context of that we will just move fast and that is good enough, or how is the ROI you're justifying for? I mean, all of these technology investments are large investments.
they are large investments. And frankly, if you look at it from an investment perspective, you will see that it's a lot of times it's a no-go because you're
Yeah,
spending too much and the value equation isn't really being
right,
articulated.
right.
So we stepped back and thought a lot about value, business value, right? We
Mm,
thought about value in the context of growth, which is, we as a Sutter Health is a integrated health network. We have 24 hospitals in the Northern California region. We have many clinics and surgery centers and ambulatory facilities across California, Northern California. And by nature of being an integrated delivery network, right, we think about growth a lot. We think about patients in terms
mm,
of are they able to engage with us? Are they getting the right access? Are they able to get the best experience, right, in the process? At the same time, we also think about efficiency. So we think about hospitals, are they uh, staffed the best way possible? Is the patient experience and the length of stay the most optimal it can be? Are we able to direct the right quality of care and then the right care coordination amongst our patients in the best way possible? So we think about efficiency as well. So when we think about solutions, analytic solutions, we sort of look at growth and we look at efficiency. We also look at risk, and a lot of our patients tend to be funded by the state, by Medicare, and so on. So we want to make sure that we are providing the most optimal quality of care to them. So all analytics have to be sort of cast in the light of growth in terms of efficiency, in terms of risk management. And the solutions that we build, right, ultimately have to affect the right business levers. So a good example is, we built a solution that helps us understand the growth of patients in our different parts of our ecosystem. And we can slice and dice it by many different ways. But in addition to that, we can actually show, where are patients potentially not coming back for a routine checkup or a visit or an appointment. Is it because it's related to access? Is it related to something else? Is it,
mm.
the geographic proximity? There are many different factors. So understanding these factors helps us really focus on, growth and help reach more number of patients in the ecosystem that we serve. That is a direct value, and we can actually measure that. And so the analytic solutions we build can actually measure that very, very well. A similar thing is, on the efficiency side, we have a lot of analytic tools that help us understand things like contract labor, for example. Contract labor can be expensive, and there's a big nursing shortage, for example. There's a big shortage in radiologists and others. How do we make sure we're connecting all of these in the best way possible through better analytics that ultimately either reduces the length of stay or improves, the quality of care elevates the patient experience. So that's how you can justify those. And those are all bottom line dollars, right? You can actually just have a direct line from an analytic capability to a bottom line dollar. So that's how we think about from business value perspective is really the value then justifies the cost. As you build the foundation, as you build the technology capabilities, it is always a question of which lever are you enabling, and then the cost becomes an easy conversation.
So two follow-on questions on the value aspect of it. So did you go ahead and lay out a master list of use cases and applications that you have to build in each of these three areas, like the cost and the efficiency or growth, efficiency, and risk, and then you have some sort of a timeline and you're kind of working through that. Is that how you did it,
Yeah.
or is it a little bit more dynamic, or how do you manage that?
Well, no, we had to go in with a plan. So at the beginning of the year, I went to our CEO and basically said, we have an opportunity to positively impact, a few things in the business. The most important thing for me was to align all of these things to the broader strategy and the broader capability of the business, right? In Sutter Health, we call this Destination 2030. So it is a vision that we have created, that our leadership has created, that actually builds upon the levers I just talked about to ultimately elevate the care and make Sutter, establish Sutter as one of the most capable integrated delivery networks in the area and potentially the nation. So all of the things I had ideas for, we sort of aligned those to those goals, and then we made a case that we would go and deliver on all of these capabilities. Now, it's easy to boil the ocean when you look at that, right? It's very easy to sort of say, I'm going to do this, this, this. We were very focused. We only picked a handful of things that we knew had the most impact. And this was informed by a lot of conversations, a lot of discovery sessions, a lot of business engagement as well. That led to a crystallization of a few large initiatives that we said we're going to go do. But large can also be sort of runaway initiatives where you can just work on this forever and never see value.
Right.
So we created very tangible milestones along the way. We said, step one is we're going to create this capability that will actually address this business case, and this is the value we're going to see. This is the ramp up and the mechanism by which we'll adopt, and then here's how we'll actually start to roll this out. So we were very clear about picking the right use cases, and we were very clear about the use cases that had the most potential and the most impact and the value. And I don't want to just attribute all of this just to analytics, right? There is a lot more that goes with it.
Yes.
It is the change management, it is the communication, it is the adoption. I mean, there are many other aspects to this that come to mind. But to be clear about all of those things up front was important. And that led to building the right credibility for the organization, my organization, to be a player that can be called upon to deliver big things.
Excellent. So just on the one other aspect of it, you mentioned product thinking, and the use case that the example that you gave around kind of the growth example, that was a fascinating one. Are you thinking, when you think about these analytics products, are you thinking about kind of the endpoints being dashboards and decision support tools? Are you thinking of endpoints being APIs connected to workflows? So how are you thinking about it, and what does it mean for your engineering? Because that's
Yeah.
where you thought about the product. So that's where I want to just kind of dig deeper into it. Like a measurement I get, but how did you actually build some of these things, and what's important?
Great question. That also is a maturation of capabilities, right? When we first conceptualized the value, obviously, as an analytics organization, our tools of trade are very sort of finite in a way when you start
Yeah.
out in terms of maturity. So let's go build a report or let's go
Yeah.
build a dashboard.
Right.
In some ways, it was even more basic, which was let's take something that is working really well in Excel and sort of systematize that, right? As basic as that.
Yeah. Makes
But
sense.
more importantly, eliminate the emailing of these Excel sheets to like hundreds of, right? Let's not do that. Let's bring everybody to a common place where they can actually see everybody's data. I'm big about data democratization. So to the extent we have the right protections in place, we should be able to entrust our leaders with the data that they need to see across the system. And that was a big tenet that we started out with. So we built essentially a platform that allows us to quickly bring to life automated dashboards, analytics, and all of those capabilities in one place. So we call that the Sutter Navigator, and it is a central spot to go in and get operations information and growth information and all of that in one place. But what we also realized is just putting it out there and having people sort of reference it may not be adequate, because that leads to questions like, why is my
Right.
trend going up or down or sideways?
Right.
So we realized the need for insights and the need to synthesize the insights in a common way, and put that in place so that by persona, I can just go in as a finance leader or an operator, and I can look at my area and I can actually quickly get a narrative as to why it is happening the way it is and what actions I should take. And we even built an action tracking tool within the tool. So you could
Hmm.
say, here's my 30, 60, 90-day plan. So I can actually go and track my actions and see the progress connected to a metric. And that to me is very important, because yeah, when you think about measurement and value, right, the value is driven by actual progress being made along the way. So, so we built that as a starting point. Then we also realized that as we build more and more of these dashboards, we need a central place to search, catalog, and then present information. So we then started to evolve to this concept of a marketplace, where
Hmm.
not only is it a place where you can just get all your dashboards and reports in one place, you can actually see the most popular ones being used in the system.
Hmm.
And then you
Hmm.
can rate them and say, this is a 5-star dashboard, give the rating and
Right.
just a little bit of a comment there. Then other people can see and say, oh, wait a minute, for referrals, I need to go to this one dashboard because that is the most popular one. So there's a social component to this that we wanted to kind of create and really roll out across the organization. So that is actually a work in progress. But then we wanted to see if we could go even further than that, right? Which is, what if groups wanted to subscribe to the most trusted data? And
Hmm.
what if they wanted to download a small piece of information so they can do their own analysis? So this is about data democracy, but more in the context of raw data and potentially curated data being democratized across the board. So we are building capabilities now to actually request that type of information. And that can be given to you either through APIs. If you want to ask for an API, it could be given through a series of downloads or even shared structures. So the key is to have the platform that is enabling you to do all of these things in the cloud, where you can connect many types of information together, curate it, catalog it, and then present it. So that is the next evolution of the journey that we're on.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So, I mean, going on the evolutions and journeys, what about how do you guys think about AI?
Well, we think about it every day, right? It's
Like
it's all
everyone else.
around us. Amresh, the evolution of AI, and I think you and I have been in the industry for many, many years, decades, right? We've seen, you know, at times we have seen sort of the shiny object and say, let's go after it, and
Yeah.
then it becomes a miserable failure. But I also feel this time around, there is something in the evolution of AI that is here to stay. The onus is on us to understand it, to be good at it, and then be able to apply it in the best way possible, right?
Hmm.
So the way we think about AI, I mean, we started out with many different pilots, as many others do,
Right.
in surgical areas and surgical meaning very focused, targeted.
Focus areas. Yeah, you have a different meaning of surgical
Yeah.
areas.
In focused areas where we said, look, AI has the greatest opportunity, in this space or that space, and so on. But we learned a lot along the way. AI in healthcare is very different in many ways. I mean, the patient information is very confidential. You want to be safeguarding your patient information. You want to make sure there isn't bias in all of the decisions and the predictions that you make. And I actually did a recent interview with an organization where I actually shared, some of the missteps that people make with AI,
Hmm.
in implementing AI for healthcare. We talked about value, which is a very key part. But in addition to that, it is also about how do you integrate AI into the workflow, the
Hmm.
day-to-day workflow? Because physicians don't want more screens to look for
Right.
information. They want one place where everything is given to them. But it's also reflective of their population, insights based on their specificity, not just any generic population. So we realized that thinking about AI is not just the shiny object and the tool. It is the ecosystem and the governance you put around it to make it
Hmm.
successful. And that is really important. So our journey has really been to recognize what those are and not just also look at it inwardly. We have to look at it externally because we are a very regulated industry.
Of course.
There's a lot of legislation that comes our way. We need to be very clear about the impact of all these bills that will have, eventually an impact on the type of things we build. So for us, it's very important to understand the ecosystem well, and then be able to create the right checks and balances and processes to make AI successful. A very simple example is, what is our AI policy? I mean, I've asked
Mm.
this all the time. Can I put this information in ChatGPT, for example? Can
Right.
I go and work with this vendor and give them our data so they can actually give us this great insight? I mean, these are questions that come my way all the time. And so we've stood up a governance structure that, um, and many governance structures have sort of a negative connotation. Oh, you're going
Yes.
to slow me down.
Yeah.
Our mindset is actually, governance is a way to speed you up because
Mm.
we can ask the right questions. We can show you where the pitfalls are, where the potholes exist. We can look around the corners and say, historically, these are the things you can expect to see when you do these things. So by putting all that up front, we are able to move things faster.
That's
So
interesting.
governance is a key capability, process and legislation and government affairs and understanding all of that is a key capability. And of course, I didn't even talk about technology, but that is equally important. Having the right partnerships and the right tech, and then the right level of the right blend, right, of where do you buy, where do you build, where do you partner. I think that's very clear, very important to have as part of the AI strategy as well. So.
Interesting. So two follow-up questions on that. I mean, one more broadly. I mean, do you see in healthcare specifically, AI will be more used in kind of diagnostic and the clinical side, or more on the administrative side, or which one is going to be easier to start with?
Well, I'll tell you, the opportunity is to start in both places, but the greatest opportunity, lowest hanging fruit, is in the operational side of things,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I would thought. Yeah,
And everybody talks about this all the time.
yeah.
The reality is, there are some big rocks, big problems healthcare is facing today. The
Mm.
one is obviously shortage of the right level of staff.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
so our staff, physicians, nurses, hospital staff, they're burdened a lot, right? Every day. I mean, they are doing so many things to make our patient, feel comfortable and get well soon. And if there is a way that technology can help make their job a little bit easier, right? Augment the work that they do. Those are absolutely the table stakes we should, go into the equation with AI. And so we're doing a lot of things around, making it easy to capture notes, for example, which is a very standard use case across healthcare. Um, Notes, physician notes during a during a physician visit. So we do those things, very basic things as well. We are building some AI chatbots to go through many, many, many policies that we have and make sure that we can synthesize all of that. So you can ask a question and get the most pertinent answer based on policy and process documentation. And we are looking at many operational AI capabilities and use cases as well. But the clinical one, right, is where the promise is, where the greatest opportunity is. If we could sort of make algorithms better, where we can actually look at patterns and predict the next disease or the next problem that patient's going to face, that to me is truly the promise of
Right.
AI
No.
and bringing that together. There is a lot that you have to unpack to be able to get there. That's why we always look at partnerships as well to see who's done that really well. Can we
Definitely.
bring that thinking into our ecosystem? But at the same time, we also have to incubate our own specificity, right? We can't take any generic
Yes.
thing that has worked elsewhere and just say that that's going to work for us. We have to be thoughtful about it. So we do a lot of analysis to understand, what is the data set that all of these models were trained on. We want to understand, the conditions in which the predictions are accurate and when they are not accurate. And over time, right, if there is a scenario where the predictions get worse because there is drift or there is, a change in bias, all of those things are important to consider as well. So.
There's a lot of organizations that are kind of building out like what they call it, like normally they would call like a Sutter GPT, like so that you have
Yeah.
your own kind of your own data and you're able to kind of go and access it. And it's kind of it's another way of I would say democratizing AI rather than democratizing data only. Is that kind of something that you guys have been working on, thinking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, we are actually looking at it. Again, the fundamental thing is, people talk about ChatGPT, people talk about, the chatbots that exist,
Mhm.
enabled by AI. The concept of conversational AI, right, is something that is very basic that, I think all organizations eventually, are going to have at some level or the other, right? And the notion of conversational AI is I'm asking a question and I'm getting an answer back that is intelligent, that is pertinent to my question and my persona, and gives me the right context the accurate context that I can go do my work with, right? So I mean that's a fundamental sort of underlying
Yeah,
concept.
absolutely.
But behind the scenes, right, the capabilities that you need to enable, right, are manifold. I mean, you have to think about what is the foundational model that understands your intent. You have to think about the grounded model that actually has the information you need, that is your company specific data, and how do you sort of parse through that and get the answers you need. And then all of the methods of interaction, right, back and forth, and the integration with many different tools. Those are capabilities we need to think about. So we're starting to really take a strategic look to this. We call this the conversational AI framework. And we want to sort of build the right level of capabilities and maturity over time. But we also realize that things change all the time. So
Of course.
we're building it in a way that is flexible, that if changes happen, we can quickly switch. Um, we have new LLM models coming every single day, better and faster and more efficient. So our ability to quickly pivot is also going to be important.
Very
Yeah,
interesting.
the short answer is yes, we're doing a lot of work in this.
But Kiran, this is like in some ways probably the most exciting time to be a CDAO and probably one of the most challenging times to be one, right? Because you have all the, I would say, historical legacy challenges that you have to deal with, and then there's all these new things kind of getting thrown at you, like at a very high speed. Uh, and if you were to kind of give advice to some of your peers based on the journey that you have had here and elsewhere, what are the couple of points that you will say, pieces of advice that you would give?
Uh, and it's not a couple, right? Because there's a lot out there to unpack. But if I were to synthesize it, right, the fundamentals are not very different from what it was maybe 5, 10 years ago. I mean, technology is here to enable business problems, solve business problems, enable better outcomes, right? And ultimately, if you think of a business, it's again in the context of how are you growing, how are you, managing efficiency, and how do you manage risk? I mean, these are generally the levers that you think about. So the advice I would have, right, I would give, people in my role is be very good in understanding that context, understand the business context very well, right? um, Lead with a, a strong understanding of business problems to be solved, and be capable business partner to your chief operating officer or chief financial officer, to your CEO. It's really important that you're viewed as a business leader first, uh, and then an enabler through AI or data next. Um, I think the other side works. Again, it depends on the industry. I have worked in high tech before, where actually being a deep technologist is actually the ticket to the game. You want to be,
Yes.
you want to lead with technology because you want to be innovative and drive things forward. So you have to flex with what the industry is asking you to do. But my experience has been that leading with a business context is important. So that's one. I think a very deep understanding of technology is imperative, right? You have to know the trends and how the technology is evolving. You almost have to have a point of view that is informed by not only the industry sort of evolution, but also technology evolution. How does enterprise architecture come together? How do you evolve to capabilities in AI and Gen AI? How do you sort of integrate some of the legacy capabilities and supercharge them? What are all the programming aspects of things, and how do you get deeper into that? We could go on and on, but To be a great technologist also means that you have to have a learning mindset because nothing is
Mhm.
static, everything changes. And some of the best leaders on my team actually don't know a technology really, really well, but they learn very fast and they can adapt and they can apply the best thinking to the business problem at hand. And I think that's an important skill to have. So that includes talent management. So finding leaders and practitioners who can learn and grow and are flexible, are consultative, and who can communicate, right, the outcome of technology to business partners. Those are imperatives, so you absolutely have to have that. Um, the notion of governance is cannot be overemphasized. It's important to have the right governance, good clean data, good clean secure data that is well orchestrated. I would try really hard to connect governance and security initiatives to business value. A lot of times, governance for governance sake is not going to help make that happen. It has to be in the context of a business value. So if you govern your most critical data assets, for example, you're more likely to make good decisions, and those decisions translate to business value. So that's something to think about as well. And then the aspect of talent, I sort of spoke to it, but talent is hard. Getting talent and growing and keeping talent and incubating talent is extremely hard. And so in some ways, you have to invest the time in it. And while you can get caught up in the shiny object and go build that, if you can find a way to kind of inspire the talent to grow, and that starts at the lowest level, right? The juniors all the way to the seniors in the organization, incubating talent and growing talent is going to be huge. So those are some things I think about a lot.
Very
There's probably
interesting.
a few others I missed, but
Very-
I know that it's a long, long narrative, right?
I have a final question for you. You brought up a point around having or developing a point of view on technology, being informed about how things are evolving and being important because that's something very, very critical right now. How, I mean, and folks ask me all the time, so I'm just curious to get your perspective. What do you tell your leaders if your leaders going to say, hey, listen, how are you developing a point of view? What are you reading? What are you learning? What's your mechanism to stay up to date and develop a point of view? What has worked for you?
So my style will be different from others, and I tell my
Of course,
leaders.
yeah, which is everyone's it's a different style and
Right?
different idea.
Everyone has a different learning style. I mean,
Yeah.
as a leadership team, we do come together and we talk a lot about what is happening in the business. What are our leaders asking for, and how do we stay plugged in to
Hmm.
the evolving needs of our business? So that is more internal, obviously.
And that's on the
But,
business side
right.
also.
And on the tech side of things, I mean, so obviously I read a lot. I
Like,
love
what
to.
do you read? Like this
Um,
blogs? Is it like podcasts? Is it
It's a combination of things, right? So I follow all the large players and read all the advancements that happen with the large players, whether it's, and we have a very specific tech stack that we've invested in, so we
of course.
follow the news for those. Part of the reason for that is I think they're at the cutting edge of things. They're actually designing and building solutions that will come down and impact us, eventually.
Mhm.
So being
Right.
there and being ahead is important. There are a lot of communities, whether it's CDAO communities. In my case, it's healthcare communities where I'm an active part of the network where I actually seek out. I really enjoy the networking part more than reading as
Yeah.
much, although reading is super important and I get a lot out of it. I actually like the interactions like this where we share some best practices and we learn from each other. And that gives me some crystallized thinking around maybe things we should be doing or things we are doing really well that I should share with others about. So there's a networking piece to it. The other thing is just doing. So I think sometimes it's a matter of roll up your sleeves and go play with it and learn the hard way, break a few things. We are starting to inculcate a culture where it's okay to take some risks and fail to the extent that you're in a controlled manner where you're not impacting patient life or anything like that, where technology for operations sake, for example, we can actually experiment with. So learning from doing is a very key part of learning, and that's something I do as well.
Wonderful. So, Kiran, I mean, what a wonderful set of ideas and thoughts, and I mean, it's very clear that It's not only that you're on a fantastic journey, but it's a very thoughtful journey, which is not surprising coming from you.
Yeah,
But really enjoyed the conversation. And I think there's some amazing nuggets in the spirit of sharing with others. I think that people will get out of it after listening to this. But thank you so much for coming and sharing your thinking and ideas.
absolutely, Amrish. Thanks for having me, and happy to do it anytime.
AuxoAI. What if? What's next?